A growing job seeker dependency. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein or cup of coffee and let's have a look at, well, the growing job seeker dependency that is emerging across Australia. And this is an article from The Australian from last year, but I think it is just as important to draw attention to it today and to look at, well, what they were referring to, how much dependency on Jobseeker is appearing. For some people, it looks like Jobseeker is having to turn into a pre-age pension, everyone. So, Jobseeker dependency grows. Jobseeker payments are becoming the new pre-age pension. As the number of older Australians signing up for the dole grows, a new report warns. Parliamentary Budget Office analysis reveals the typical welfare recipient is now an older person rather than a younger man. Now, this is going to challenge perhaps some of the preconceptions a lot of people have about who is on welfare. And really the question is how we can address this situation that we've gotten into. The report also shows an increasing share of older Australians and women are relying on the payment for longer periods of time. Jobseeker appears to be functioning as a kind of pre-aged pension payment for some older Australians, the report states. Now, that's the issue, guys, because the older you get, the harder it is to get back into employment. Ageism it's legitimate. It exists. I mean, yeah, anyone over 45 looking for a job, let us know in the comments your experiences, guys. The share of recipients aged 60 and over also increased for both genders, with a larger rise among females. And we'll see further on that this has actually got to do with some of the criteria that they're changing. Essentially, they're wanting to push more people into employment, so they're taking them off other schemes and they're putting them onto Jobseeker, as well as an increase in our unemployment rate. Between 2007 and 2019, the share of recipients on Jobseeker for 1 year or more rose from 48% to 71% for women. Just look at that, from 48% to 71%, and from 51% to 63% for men. 1/3 of women on Jobseeker and 29% of men aged 55 and above had been on the payment for 5 years or more in June 2019. 5 years or more on Jobseeker. Having to deal with the bureaucrats and the people in the department for that long, you should get a medal. Probably be an expert. You should probably get a government job working at Centrelink. The report expects this will increase government spending on welfare, irrespective of short-term fluctuations in the unemployment, because of the gradual increase in the pension age to 67 years old. I mean, this is the thing. The government takes money off you your whole life, and they're meant to put it aside for you, so then they'll give it back to you when you have a pension. But it doesn't work like that, does it? They frill it away on buying votes and little doodads and things. It's not like they're saving it for you. And they also force you to save money in your superannuation that you don't have access to until you can access it at the appropriate age, when they determine. I mean, what age do you think the pension will be when you can retire? I'm 40. Do I expect to retire in 27 years? Do I expect to get the pension? Not really. That's my one criticism, I think, or confusion with regards to the barefoot investor, advocating for financial literacy and the Aussie Dave Ramsey, really, what some people refer to him as, and I think that's pretty accurate. But, encouraging people to depend on the pension or trusting that the pension will be there. I'm sure it will be in one form or another, but the price you pay is having to deal with the bureaucrats. If you can find a way to avoid it, particularly if you're younger, that's the goal, I think. It also noted that there were many more older women on Jobseeker than are counted as unemployed, and we'll get to that in the report, guys. It is understood to be a result of less stringent requirements on people over 54 compared to young people to apply for jobs and to receive the dole. There are a lot of people that, nearly half who are on Jobseeker, don't actually have to look for work. And that's before we had all of these other requirements. Oh, well, no, we didn't have mutual obligation. Sorry, we had the holiday from it due to the lockdown and economic interventions to mitigate the pandemic. So a rise of job seeker recipient numbers since COVID-19 has been driven by more men than women, despite females losing jobs and leaving the workforce at higher rates between March and June. Australian Greens Senator Rachel Seward said, "We're looking at a crisis of older women retiring into poverty." And you know what they're going to do? Oh, well, we'll have to just up your super, take away more of your money, so you simple little plebs, get other people to manage it. Get the union-controlled super funds to management, or the bank-controlled super funds. The Parliamentary Budget Office expects an increase in job seeker expenditure will be partially offset by savings from the eligibility changes of other income support payments. So that's the argument. So let's have a look here at government to the rescue. And what I want to draw attention to, I mean, this is the report we'll go through, where welfare dependency is increasing due to a combination of policy changes and unemployment. But before we look at that, I want to go through this tax receipt. Here in Australia, we receive a receipt, and it tells you where your taxes have gone. And this was based on the last one I got. 40% of the taxes I paid went to welfare, everyone. 40% went to welfare. Now, of that, the biggest proportion of that went to aged care, 41%. Then 27% went to disability services. 22% went to families. And only 6% went to unemployment. So only 6% went to unemployment, everyone. You know, you've got to realize when people are complaining about those people on the welfare, on the dole, much more of that money is going to the aged care and disability and families. Okay? You've got to realize that. Even people tend to forget the family tax benefit. You can get that benefit when you're not paying any tax. You know, so I would rather we simplify our tax system instead of moving money all around, you know, jumping through hoops and all this added complexity to it. You know, one suggestion would be, if we, you know, get rid of the family tax benefit, you allow family, well, you tax based on a family, and then you allow to split up, and depending on how many, well, you know, dependencies you have. Maybe you allow husband and wife to split their income down the middle. But that's what it's trying to offset. You know, they want to keep everyone employed now, guys. The idea of having one person working from home, we can't have that. That's a luxury. So just remember that, everyone. Whenever we're talking about welfare and unemployment, the majority of welfare is going to age, disability, and families. Then we've got, you know, health at 19%, defense at 9%, education 8%, and the list goes on. You show this to someone in America, and they're quite jealous that we actually get this information. How accurate it is, we'll see. And I've got another video I'm working on just looking at how much our government and state debts are going. So that's going to look really bad now with all this spending. So let's keep that in mind. So the expenditure on job seeker and fortnightly payments. So you've got the nominal payments on the right-hand side and the real payment rates here. You know, for inflation pretty much hasn't changed since the 90s. It hasn't moved at all, and we're well aware of that, everyone. Sometimes the criteria have changed so that, you know, people's circumstances have changed, and that has increased the amount that they've gotten. And finally now there's been an increase to it. So it's not a lot of money. Now remember, this is not designed, this here, the unemployment, isn't designed as a universal basic income or a replacement of it. And I know some people will advocate for it. We'll talk about that later. It's designed as an emergency temporary measure for people to, well, keep them from destitution. But if you have people on it up to 5 years, is that working then? What else is wrong? You know, why can't these people find work? So let's have a look at this. The job seeker payment and underemployment. While the job seeker payment is the main income support payment for unemployed people, not all job seeker recipients are unemployed, and not all unemployed people receive an unemployment benefit. Indeed, the overlap between receiving job seeker and being unemployed is much smaller than might be expected. The job seeker payment is only available to people under specific income and asset thresholds. There you go. You've got to remember this. You've got to if you've done the smart thing and you've saved and you've built a reserve, they'll want you to burn through that before you can, or there'll be certain criteria before you can claim the job seeker. It's not income protection insurance, guys. That's not what it is. Okay, don't kid yourself into thinking that's what it is. It's not. And the question is, do you trust them? Do you trust our political leaders to, have the age, pension, the disability, and all of that around when you're ready to access it? I'm sure some people do. So, you have to satisfy mutual obligation requirements to search for jobs and undertake other required annual activities unless you're exempt. Recipients can be counted as an unemployed, underemployed, employed, or not in the labor force using the ABS statistics, and we're familiar with that. And of course, they use international consistent standards. That's why we have the ABS unemployment rate. Have I updated this? Maybe I haven't. It's going down about 5. I think it's 5.5 now. It's dropped. I need to update this. But we also have, we've got the ABS here. Their unemployment rate 5.8. And then we have the Roy Morgan unemployment rate, and that's generally about double. We're sitting at 13.2. This number here is the one that really scares me. That's the combined unemployment and underemployment rate. Notice the difference. 5.8%, 13.2%. What do you reckon? Which one do you think is accurate, guys? I'm going to have a shot of coffee while you let me know in the comments your preferred measure of unemployment. I guess it's if you're writing it's if your preferred political party is in power, then you might say, oh, look at unemployment rate under such and such, 13%, the idiots. Look at unemployment rate under such and such, only 5.8%. Aren't they geniuses? Supreme economic managers. I still think it's funny that we think we can manage emergent systems, but anyway, let's not get into that this time. So we'll look at this superscript. Data from the most recent Australian Bureau of Statistics of Housing Income 2017-18 indicated that around 1 in 4 job seeker recipients was counted as unemployed, 2 in 5 were counted as not in the labour force, and 1 in 3 unemployed persons was in receipt of job seeker payments. So there you go. That's interesting. It's a better measure. So the nature of the job seeker recipient population has changed markedly since the early 1990s recession and even since the GFC. Understanding these changes helps to explain how future economic conditions might affect existing job keeper recipients and overall expenditure on the job seeker payment. This will be particularly relevant as the Australian economy recovers from the impact of the pandemic. To begin exploring the changes, it is useful to compare 2 annual snapshots of recipients, one just before COVID-19, one just before the GFC, and one in 2019 before COVID-19. Comparing these 2 pre-economic crises years helps to understand the recipient profiles during the relatively stable periods and to discern the underlying long-term trends that are helpful for projecting medium-term expenditure. Economic crises tend to result in higher numbers of temporary recipients that are not typical of usual job seeker populations. You've got to understand, guys, what we're going through here is the budget, Parliamentary Budget Office. So they're worried about future expenditure and spending. I mean, because that's their job. That's what they're doing there, guys. So, job seeker recipients by selected characteristics. And I thought this was interesting to see here from 2007 and 2019. So you can see here, men in 2007, partial capacity to work. Look at that. Look how much that's climbed. That is significantly increased. 1 year or more on job seeker, that's increased a little bit. Primary care of dependent children, it's only gone up a little bit. For women, it's gone up much higher, which, I can't say is too surprising because of gender roles. Look at that partial capacity to work. That's really, look at that. I mean, would that be, that could probably be, I'd argue, and we'll see later in the thing, is the fact that people are being moved away from disability or other pensions onto job seeker to try and get them still working. What do you have here? 45 years and over. I mean, that's gone up for men and for women. 60 years and over. Look at how much it's gone up significantly higher for women. And work 15 hours or more. Now, that's gone down for men and it's gone up for women. Single has gone up slightly for both, and the full rate is slightly higher now for men, and it's gone down for women. So note, partial capacity to work refers to activity-tested recipients having an assessed physical, intellectual, or psychiatric impairment, which would prevent them from working 30 hours per week. But 30 hours per week isn't even a full-time week. Is it? Is 30 hours a... I mean, I don't know. What's a full-time week? I remember when I was working at an architectural practice, one of them had the contract was 40 hours a week. I'm a small business guy, people. It's been so long since I've worked. And I've worked in the architectural industry, which is kind of, you know, terrible with regards to hours. You just do extra hours just to get stuff done. And I was a young man without a family. So, you know, you stay home, you stay in the office, you do extra work, you know, you're proud of what you're doing. And you don't waste as much money going out drinking and partying. So it's a win-win. So let's have a look here. Three broad trends in the job seeker population have become evident over time, as shown in Figure 2.1. Firstly, job seeker recipients were mostly younger men and now older people, with an increased share of older women. The share of recipients aged 45 and older increased from 45% to 56% among females and from 34% to 45% among men between 2007 and 2019. The share of recipients aged 60 and older also increased for both genders, with a larger rise among females. The share of recipients who are primary carers of dependent children is also rising. For females, it increased from 7 to 27% between these years. It also increased among male recipients, but remains very small, below 5%. Secondly, the share of long-term job seeker recipients is rising, and that's a scary thing. More people, especially females, have been on the payment for more than 1 year. The relative increase was higher for females from 48% to 71%. 71%. And males 51 to 63% from 2007 to 2019. And here's one thing that they're not mentioning in this. Since the global financial crisis, Australia's economy has been growing. Our GDP has been growing. But on a per capita population basis, we have been growing below trend. One could make the argument, and some economists do, that that is a sign of a depressed economy. You know, growth below trend for an extended period of time. That means our population growth has been helping our GDP increase, and it gets the great sound bites, it makes the politicians look good. But we're all slightly worse off. This tends to align with that, doesn't it? Thirdly, the share of recipients searching for work and assessed as having full capacity for work are falling. Recipients of both genders experience a large increase in recipients with only a partial capacity to work, a fall from 10% in 2007 to 40% in 40% in 2019. Could that be our terrible diet? We're starting to see the ramifications of it. We're eating more seed oil, eating more rubbish. So here's the share of job seeker recipients by gender. And I mean, there you go, guys. So men are falling down since the 90s, and women just now, we're all even. Maybe that just shows you workplace participation now, or, you know, divorce, and women are having to work later into life where in the past they wouldn't have had to. So here's the share of recipients by gender and age group. So if we look down the bottom, men and women in 2001, most of it was 25. Look at that. Look at this change, guys. 25 to 29 was the biggest proportion of people on welfare just 20 years ago. Now, the biggest group is, it looks like it's women. Is that right? Yeah, it looks like it's women. No. Yeah. I need a, yep. Women 60 plus and men 60 plus. They're the biggest group. Look at that. 20 years ago, no women 60 plus were getting it pretty much. Look at how our culture's changed in 20 years, guys. Is this a good outcome? Wow. And it just shows you how population are getting older, everyone. We don't have the population growth. You know what they're going to do? They're going to open the floodgates. I would be shocked if they don't open the immigration floodgates to try and address this. What do you reckon, guys? Look at that. There you go. So it's going down. It's, you know, less people are on it. Look, women have just increased. So, job seeker recipients and unemployed persons by gender from 92 to 2019 and key economic policy changes. So here we've got unemployed men. That's the dashed red line. And here's the male recipients of Job Keeper, or the dole back then. Here you've got female recipients. And this is the unemployed women. And it's indexed from 92. So you can see from 92, the male recipients have gone down, and the unemployment rate has also gone down. Now, the unemployment rate for women has gone down, but the recipients, yeah, it's kind of, maybe it's almost the same, isn't it? But the recipients have gone up much higher. So work for the dole, New Start raised to 21 back then in 98. Remember that? What's this? Partner allowance closed to new claimants in 2004. Welfare to work reforms and the global financial crisis. And there you go. Once the GFC hit, that's when women just started, well, shooting up. And I think it's to do with these legislative changes. Parenting payment legacy exemptions removed. There you go, right there. That's the removal there. So here's job seeker recipients and unemployed persons by gender and age from 92 to 2019. Now, this is, again, it's an index. So, you know, 92 was 100. And you can see here's, you know, 20 to 35. You got males, females. Females have slightly jumped up as well. Again, men, we've just gone down. So the bloke's just working, guys. You got no choice. Get out there and work. Or you just don't want to deal with the bureaucracy. You know, screw it. I'm going minimalism. Get me a tent. I'll live like a hobo. You've got female recipients. Look at that. But look at this increase of 45 and over. And this is the women retiring in poverty, everyone. And there you go. Now, the concern with this is that the politicians are going to jump onto it and implement sexist or discriminatory political policies or employment policies. Because that's what they'll do. They'll see something they don't like and they'll try and massage the system to make it work. And what happens every time they do it? It works out perfectly well. There's absolutely no problems or stuff-ups, and we all live happily ever after. Yeah, this is just coffee. I wish it was something else. So here's the distribution of recipients by duration on Jobseeker from 2007 to 2019. You can see here under 1 year, that's falling down. That's great. That's what you want. But 2 to 5 years is increasing. 5 years or more, over 20%. Guys, that's not what we want. So, what do we have here? Duration on Jobseeker and likelihood of leaving the payment. The likelihood of leaving Jobseeker is very different for short-term and long-term recipients. Well, yeah, there's going to be, if you've been on Jobseeker for a long period of time, employers are going to hold that against you. Guys, that's the reality of it. And, I mean, if you're an employer, are you going to take a risk on someone that's been on it 1 year or someone that's been on it 5 years? Figure 210 illustrates that this using data from 1718. At that stage of the year, there were approximately 733,000 Jobseeker recipients. During the year, 355,000 additional Jobseeker recipients took up the payment, and around 2/3 of these people left the payment within a year. However, of the 733,000 people who started the year on the payment, only 1/3 had left the payment 1 year later. So, almost half of Jobseeker recipients are not required to search for jobs. Now, this was surprising for me, honestly, to learn this. Almost half of all Jobseeker recipients are not required to search for jobs. So if they're not required to search for jobs, why are they Jobseeker recipients? Why don't we have them on another program or another support mechanism? That's the question I put to you. Wouldn't that be easier and more efficient here? I know some people will argue for UBI, and we'll look at that in the solutions and where it's failed and where it's succeeded. A third significant change to the Jobseeker recipient profile has been a decrease in the share of recipients searching for work and assessed as having full capacity for work. A snapshot of Jobseeker recipients reveals that as at June 2019, half of women and nearly 40% of men on Jobseeker, half of women, were exempt from job search. For women, this is up from 10 percentage points since the same time in 2017. Some recipients were not required to search for a paid job because they were already meeting the mutual obligation requirements by undertaking approved voluntary work. And this is my understanding of what they get some older people to do, is just to do voluntary work if they can't find a job. That kind of meets the approved requirements. Or does that result in an underclass that are doing these busy jobs? Or maybe they want to enjoy the voluntary work. So, or a combination of voluntary and part-time work. I can see that happening more often. For the others, reasons for exemption from job search include temporary illness or incapacity. I mean, no one would see that as being unreasonable. Undertaking training or self-development, that's what you want to do to get out of this situation. Or being assisted to find a job through a disability employment service. I had a friend who he legally blind, and he had these disability employment services try and find him jobs, and they were just, he did not speak very well of his experiences of them. He actually gave a speech down in Canberra quite critical of them. So here we have job search and conditions for exemption by gender in 2017 and 19. 2007 and 19. So if we have a look here at men, you've got 33% are exempt, and of those are exempt, 14% were training, 3% were doing volunteering, 8% were other, and 8% were temporary illness or incapacitated. While 67% were looking for jobs. This is 2017. You've got to remember it's gone up. For women, 37% were exempt. Training or development was also 14%, the same as men. Slightly higher for temporary illness or incapacitated, 9% is other, and voluntary part-time work was slightly higher. We have here in June 2019 now. So 38% men are exempt. That's a 5% increase. We can have a look there. 12% have got illness, 10% other, 5% volunteering, and 12% are training. So that training's gone down. Have a look at the female one though, 50% exempt. Look at that change in that pie, guys. 15% are doing voluntary or part-time work, up from 4%. So this is probably people getting older, getting on it and just not able to find a job. So training or self-development is 12. Temporary illness or incapacitated are 12, and 11% are other. And here is the total job seeker recipients by month. And this was last year. And well, I mean, we're not surprised that that skyrocketed everyone due to the government interventions in the economy. Some people just could not work. Couldn't work. And the question is the price that we're paying for this, the lost jobs, the lost connections, people's livelihoods destroyed, is it worth it? Will that ever be answered? So we've got, UBI, another source of government coming to the rescue. And this is a video I did in 2019, where Finland's basic income trial, it left people happier but jobless. It didn't work. It did not work. I know there'll be people calling for UBI. We'll have to look at other examples. So solutions. So government needs to step out of the way, I would argue. It's going to be hard for people that are older to find work. You need to reduce impediments to hiring and impediments to employment. Make it easier to hire and fire people, guys. You need to allow the market to adjust. What if you're older? You can get paid below award for, maybe work at a lower rate. But it doesn't garnish off your pay, so you're not stuck in the poverty trap. Otherwise we're losing that experience and knowledge. If people don't want to do it, they don't have to. Make it voluntary. That's what the market is meant to be. Advocate for a reduction in council red tape to encourage at-home businesses or startups for experienced people. I mean, that's the problem. It's going to be the not in my backyard crowd are going to, if someone's got years of experience, they want to start up their own business or, do something themselves. It's going to be the NIMBY crowd that are going to get them, or the council that are going to get them. Someone's going to dob them in. Allow earlier access to super for those close to the pension age but can't find work. If they've got significant money in super, why are they having to jump through these processes? Why can't they access it early to allow them to retire beforehand? I'd say the biggest one, though, is we need to improve financial literacy. And I think We need to encourage young people to not be in a situation where they need to depend on the state. We need to advocate for less intervention in our lives, less money vacuumed out of our pockets. And people need to realize how much taxes that they're giving to these people that just waste it away. And then they make you feel bad. They make you feel bad for needing it when you get older or when you're in tough times. So that's the key, guys. Honestly, I think the debt that they get you into here in Australia and all around the world, I think a lot of it's to do with a compliant population, you know. And, well, let's try a real. What about we do a real UBI? There's one problem with it. You'd need to shut every Centrelink office. What if we shut every Centrelink office in the country? And I've mapped them out somewhere. It's depressing how many there are. And then just said, okay, every unionized civil servant working for Centrelink is, and I'll just bring up this this wage growth chart here. Just you can see down the bottom the index and difference between public and private growth over the last few years. It's not the same. They're a little different to those of us who work in the real world. What if we just shut down all the Centrelink offices and put all those civil servants on the UBI? What do you reckon? If you're worth a shot, let's see what happens. Can you imagine it happening? You know what'll happen, guys. Then it'll become every special interest group will get their own version of UBI. You know, bald white men on YouTube should get extra UBI just because. And then you'll get the tall poppy syndrome where in Australia the Gina Reinhardts will get UBI and they'll shame them about it. I mean, the same thing is, we have a look here. You got, the families, the family tax benefit, guys. It is welfare. It's income redistribution and welfare because you don't need to earn much for it to all disappear, for it to peter out as a family. I'd rather other ways to give advantages to families. I understand why they're doing it, but it becomes like the food stamp thing in the States. So there we have it, guys. Trying UBI and just essentially moving less intervention in the markets to at least give an opportunity for all the people to work so they're not stuck dealing with this. What are your suggestions, guys? I know this is a touchy topic and it's going to be tough, but we've got to find a way to get people working because this dependency on Jobseeker, guys, it's just growing. As always, thank you all very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. If you're a fan of the channel and enjoy the content I create here, there are a few ways you can support us. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using our affiliate links from Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or AussieBroadband. Take care. Oh, also, you can use the Perth Mint or PayPal. Take care, guys. Have a great day, and I will see you all in the next episode. Bye for now.